Becoming an elite mixed martial artist requires years of training and the willingness to dedicate one's entire being to the sport. However, it's often the intangibles that can't be taught that separate good fighters from the truly great ones. One such intangible is natural athleticism. Over the years, we have seen some amazing athletes set foot inside the octagon, and in several instances, go on to win world championships. While athleticism itself can be somewhat difficult to quantify, the fighters we are about to feature have demonstrated plenty of it over the courses of their careers. So for this video, we'll be taking a look at some of the most talented and athletically gifted fighters we've seen inside the UFC. As always, if you guys enjoy this video, then please be sure to let me know by leaving a like and subscribing to our channel. Now without further ado, and ranked in no particular order, let's take a look at 10 of the greatest athletes in UFC history. Number 10. Jon Jones. At 6'4" with an impressive 84.5-inch reach, UFC light heavyweight champion Jon Jones is clearly a physically gifted individual. And while his enormous height and reach have certainly worked to his advantage, his exceptional abilities have also played a major role in his success. Over the course of his career, Jones has proven himself to be one of the most dynamic and innovative fighters in the history of MMA. Although this isn't much of a surprise, especially considering he comes from a family of great athletes. Both his brothers, Arthur and Chandler Jones, have played in the NFL, while the reigning UFC champ was also a defensive lineman in his high school days. Of course, Jon Jones was a standout amateur wrestler during his time at Iowa Community College. Moreover, the natural speed and reflexes he has shown inside the cage have even prompted Sport Illustrated to once ask if Jon Jones was the best athlete in America. Jones is someone who has proven time and time again to be the complete package. And this athleticism has helped Jones earn a reputation as one of the greatest fighters of all time. Number 9. Georges St-Pierre. Like Jon Jones, Georges St-Pierre is widely considered as one of the greatest fighters the sport has ever seen. The former welterweight king is one of the most naturally gifted athletes on the planet. St-Pierre was involved in several sports as a youngster, including ice hockey and skating. He also began learning karate at the early age of 7 to defend himself against school bullies. However, it was during his time inside the UFC that the world would get to see what a marvelous athlete he truly is. GSP did not wrestle in high school or college. However, due in large part to his amazing athleticism, he would go on to become one of the most effective wrestlers in the UFC. During his time as a welterweight champion, he even out-wrestled NCAA Division I standouts like Josh Koscheck and John Fitch. The fact that GSP was able to defeat two former Division I grapplers without any sort of wrestling pedigree, it truly demonstrated the future UFC Hall of Famer's next-level athletic ability. During his time as a mixed martial artist, virtually no one was able to outmatch GSP in terms of both skill and physical prowess. And this is likely to be one of the primary reasons why no one was able to dethrone GSP during his 6-year title reign. Number 8. Chad Mendes. Chad Money Mendes is arguably the best featherweight to never hold UFC gold. He is also a remarkable athlete who has outstanding amateur wrestling credentials. During his days as a college grappler at California Polytechnic State University, Mendes amassed a stellar 64-14 record. As a senior, he went 30-1 and came in second at the 2008 NCAA Championships. Once he made the transition over to mixed martial arts in 2008, his wrestling skills helped mold him into one of the most formidable featherweights in MMA history. His exceptional takedowns and groundwork helped him keep undefeated for the first half of his career, going 11-0 before losing to Jose Aldo back in 2012. Even after his KO loss to Aldo, Chad evolved drastically as a fighter, quickly showing why he was dangerous on his feet as well as the mat. His staggering speed and power allowed him to put away several tough featherweights during his UFC run. Though he was unable to successfully seize UFC gold, the 3-time title challenger was both an elite college athlete and an outstanding mixed martial artist. Number 7. Tyron Woodley. Tyron Woodley has always been someone who possesses incredible speed and explosiveness, and it's an asset he has relied on during both his time as a wrestler and a mixed martial artist. There is no shortage of amazing amateur wrestlers on our list, and the chosen one, Tyron Woodley, very much fits this mold. The former UFC welterweight champ was a two-sport athlete in high school, excelling at both football and wrestling. He would go on to grapple for the University of Missouri, where he became a 2-time All-American. Once he made his transition over to MMA, Woodley took to it like a natural, going 10-0 during his first 3 years. While he entered MMA with a strong wrestling base, Woodley quickly diversified his skill set to the point where he forced his opponents to respect both his grappling as well as his knockout power. Upon entering the UFC in 2013, Woodley's athletic prowess allowed him to climb to the top of the division and seize the welterweight crown, a division he ruled over from 2016 to 2018. During his UFC run, he was able to secure impressive finishes over the likes of Darren Till, Robbie Lawler and Josh Koscheck. And even at the age of 37, the Chosen One remains one of the UFC's premier athletes. Number 6. Demetrious Johnson. Due to their naturally smaller size, flyweight fighters often compete at a much faster pace, especially when considered to the heavier weight classes in MMA. But there are perhaps none who are faster and more explosive than Demetrious Mighty Mouse Johnson. Johnson is a fighter who has excelled in all areas of the game. Whatever his opponents seem good at, Johnson always seems to be better. Though he credits a large amount of his success to his strength and conditioning work, his natural athleticism has certainly helped Demetrious Johnson reach the pinnacle of the MMA world. As a high school athlete, Demetrious Johnson competed in wrestling, track and cross country, and would even qualify to compete for the state championship in all 3 sports. The former featherweight champ would continue to showcase his outstanding athletic ability as a mixed martial artist who would dominate the UFC flyweight division for several years, winning the title back in 2012 and amassing 11 title defenses along the way. For those who would like to see his next level athleticism on full display, look no further than the flying armbar victory over Ray Borg back in 2017. Most would agree that Johnson has already established himself as the greatest flyweight ever, and so far he's continued to build on his amazing legacy in one championship. Number 5. Luke Rockhold. Luke Rockhold is someone who has always looked the part of a high-level athlete and has the family pedigree as well. The former middleweight champ's father played basketball for a living in Europe, and his brother, Matt Rockhold, is a professional surfer. The UFC star, who grew up in Santa Cruz, California, was also an excellent surfer and skateboarder in his own right. Of course, the only waves he'd end up making were in the world of MMA. Rockhold has always boasted a unique brand of athleticism. Despite his large size, Rockhold is known for having excellent conditioning and surprising agility for a middleweight. With that said, Rockhold was able to develop a strong striking arsenal, as well as a solid ground game that would take the MMA world by storm. Upon making his debut in 2007, Rockhold quickly amassed an impressive record of 10-1, and even won the Strikeforce title before transitioning over to the UFC. Though his UFC career got off to a rocky start after suffering a knockout loss in his debut, he rebounded well and went on to finish his next 5 opponents in impressive fashion, as he laid claim to middleweight gold. Using his natural athleticism, Rockhold was able to become one of the best middleweights in the world. And while he's recently fallen on hard times, his remarkable athletic ability is something that's never been called into question. Number 4. Yoel Romero. Yoel Romero is perhaps the most bizarre case on this list, mainly due to the fact that over 20 years of competing hasn't seemed to slow him down one bit. Don't believe it? Perhaps this video of Romero doing a backflip during a face-off with Israel Adesanya will have you convinced. Romero began his athletic career as a highly decorated amateur wrestler. He eventually won a silver medal at the 2002 Summer Olympic Games in Sydney, entering as a member of the Cuban national team. Of course, it takes an exceptional sportsman to even qualify for the Olympics. However, only the most elite athletes in the world would be able to leave the games with a medal. Despite making the transition over to MMA at the late age of 31, he quickly earned a reputation as one of the sport's best athletes due to his power and explosiveness. His vicious knockout victories over Chris Weidman and Luke Rockhold are a testament to that. These attributes are a big part of the reason why Romero is still in the title picture at the age of 42. And we think it's fair to say he doesn't appear to be going anywhere anytime soon. Number 3. Brock Lesnar. Even by heavyweight standards, former UFC champ Brock Lesnar is an exceptional competitor. Prior to his MMA career, Brock Lesnar was a phenomenal amateur wrestler who became the NCAA Division I heavyweight champion back in 2000 during his time at the University of Minnesota. During his 4-year college wrestling career, the big man amassed an impressive record of 106-5. Lesnar is such a remarkable athlete that he even managed to make the Minnesota Vikings preseason squad despite never playing football in college. From there, he would transition into the sport of mixed martial arts and go on to have an outstanding career. As a pro fighter, Lesnar ascended to the top of the MMA world quicker than most. Despite losing his UFC debut to Frank Mir, Lesnar would go on to win the heavyweight world title in just his third UFC appearance. What he lacked for in experience, he more than made up for with his absurd speed and strength. Unfortunately, a serious battle with diverticulitis hit him in the prime of his UFC career, a condition that nearly took his life. And after suffering back-to-back losses against Cain Velasquez and Alistair Overeem, Lesnar announced his temporary retirement in 2011. Fans can debate about his fighting skills all they want, but in terms of sheer athleticism, Brock Lesnar is as gifted as they come. Number 2. Vitor Belfort. Anyone who has 14 finishes inside a UFC octagon, which is tied for the third most of all time, certainly qualifies as a great athlete. Of course, Belfort's 14 finishes hardly tells the whole story. Vitor Belfort has always been a fighter with almost superhuman speed and athleticism. In just his very first pro fight, Vitor Belfort knocked his opponent John Hess out in an astonishing 12 seconds. This was despite John having a 7-inch height advantage and a more than 100-pound weight advantage. Soon after, he transitioned over to the UFC, where he won the UFC 12 heavyweight tournament at just 19 years old, becoming the youngest fighter to earn a victory inside the octagon. Over the next 21 years, he developed a reputation as one of the sport's premier knockout artists. In his prime, Vitor Belfort was someone who terrorized the middleweight division, scoring sensational knockouts over Luke Rockhold, Michael Bisping and Dan Henderson. His explosive power and quickness made him both respected and feared by all. Although his past use of TRT has long been a topic of debate, he's undoubtedly one of the greatest talents the sport has ever seen. Number 1. Henry Cejudo. Current bantamweight champion Henry Cejudo may be the king of cringe, but he also holds a strong argument for the greatest combat athlete of all time. As a high school wrestler, Cejudo was a 4-time state champion. During his freestyle wrestling career, he was a 3-time Pan American Championships gold medalist and a Pan American Games champion in 2007. In 2008, Cejudo won a gold medal at the Beijing Olympics, which made him the youngest Mexican American to ever win a gold medal. Following his retirement from the wrestling world, Cejudo set his sights on mixed martial arts. And not only did he have an elite wrestling background as a foundation for his MMA, but remarkably, he had also won the Arizona State Golden Gloves in boxing. Cejudo's athletic background served him well during his time as a fighter. After signing with the UFC in 2014, he was able to use his elite striking and wrestling to become one of the only simultaneous 2-division champions, dethroning featherweight legend Demetrious Johnson along the way. Objectively speaking, no one has been able to accomplish what Henry Cejudo has in the world of combat sports, and his athletic gifts have carried him to the pinnacle of the MMA world. As always, if you guys enjoyed this video, then please be sure to let me know by leaving a like and subscribing to our channel. Apart from that, thanks so much for watching guys, and we'll see you on the next video.
Never have a doubt, do you like me now? Am I good enough now? Should I get more loud till you hear the fucking sound? Oh no, I'm losing my shit again, having to fit again. Man, I'm forgetting when I used to have some friends. I used to play pretend, we all grow up and then hating my phone and trends. I'm about to blow my head, nobody knows I'm dead. Fear I'm a ghost instead, think that I'm close, I get straight comatose in bed. Try to go slow with breath, breathe out my nose and head. Heart doesn't go the trend, fast